of all invite Mr. Erno de Korte. I don't want to really, take too much of time introducing him. I definitely want to give him another 60 seconds to, introduce himself. But he's been the most energetic person who has been an entrepreneur. He's a CEO, he's a founder, as well as he's been one of the largest trainers from Netherlands. So I really don't want to take too much of time and would love to invite Dr. Erno de Korte. Sir, if you could really take over and enthrall us.
Yes, sorry, there was a slight problem with the connection. So here I am. I would like to share my screen as well. I am a global entrepreneur since 1995, and I'll be using my smartphone for a very good reason, as you will see. So I'll move to share my screen now. There we are. So you should be able to see my screen, which mentions Back to the Future, right?
Yes, we do.
Good. So what I want us to do as a kind of intermission to all the previous speakers that I've been listening to, I've heard a lot about skills development and about STEM and other very important topics. But I want us to jump into the future. If you have a piece of paper and a pen, you might need notes about what your preference is going to be, because I want to take you or one of your loved ones in the future towards Mars. You are now 40, 50 years, perhaps 30 years in the future, and you are one of the 10,000 humans living on Mars. What talents, what skills do we need to even survive there, to prosper, of course? That is part of what I want to discuss with you, and what I've done for that is I've taken a number of topics. I will only take the allotted time, so I will not be longer than 10 minutes. But let's take the most important one. Let's first think about food. I have been working here in South Africa last week with a large food corporation, and what you see is that the dependency of food for humanity has always been there, of course, but that we have evolved in that, and that we don't even know where food is coming from anymore. We look at cupcakes at food, but rather it's carrots. So what would you think is more important on Mars? If you would be living there, if your son or daughter is living there, would it be a cupcake or a carrot? Just write down your preference and let's move on. If you then think about the next thing, and that's part of what we are doing on Earth right now, we are getting more and more dependent on monocultures, while you rather should consider wouldn't diversity in agriculture be more important and make us use less pesticides, etc. So the Sustainable Development Goals, for example, they ask these questions as well. Do we need a monoculture or diversity? This isn't only true for food, but it is also true for talents. If you would have many of the same talents, if you would have a lot of specialists, I'll come to that in a second. It's also even true for technology, as we will see. So next on the list is that we will not have oil on Mars. So running an internal combustion engine isn't going to happen. We need to evolve. We need to make the next step as society into electric vehicles, obviously. And if you look at that, even nowadays on Earth, why do we even still use these internal combustion engines? If you look at all the things that we could benefit from if we would start using electric vehicles much more. Look at this list, for example. You can have a look at these slides later in more detail. I will share a quote with you for that. Think about your life on Mars. If you just follow protocol, if you just do everything by the book, will that help you to resolve crisis, or do we need to add a healthy doses of creativity as well? So for our survival on Mars, creativity might be crucial, because if something breaks down and we simply keep following protocol, so I would write down probably creativity is more important than protocol per se. Then the other thing that we have a tendency to do is we tend, specifically in certain categories of business, to avoid risk. But people like Elon Musk or even Nelson Mandela and people like Steve Jobs, they have shown us that risk-taking can have a huge advantage. The idea and the development of ideas, sitting in prison for more than 25 years, led to a situation where now in South Africa, apartheid is gone in a way that nobody had foreseen. So risk-taking, that's what he certainly did. That's what Elon Musk and others are doing, is part of what we do not often teach about in most of our education centers. Also, we have a tendency right now, and this wouldn't be very agreeable on Mars probably, to have more and more what you can call replaceable puppets. If you go to your average restaurant, you wouldn't really see much difference between one person working in McDonald's like another, or Kentucky Fried Chicken. These people have become replaceable puppets. In that setting, in that industry, that might be the right way to do, but it's not a good idea to have people like that to help you survive on Mars. We need strong individuals, people with a strong mindset. And I think some of the earlier speakers have spoken about that as well. Personal development is a very important point. So that is part of what we need to consider. Next thing is, yes, universities and academic papers play an important role. But I've also heard from previous speakers and from my own experience as well, I've seen the examples. Universities, academics are not often the best people to lead to practical education. It's not criticism, but it's just the reality of what we see quite often, criticism coming from all kinds of angles at universities. And I have heard some good initiative this morning, how we can have more practical execution, because that is the way probably to survive on Mars, rather than just going in the same circle and creating more and more paperwork. Which leads to the next one. Will Mars education, like we have known it for the last two and a half centuries, will still be the best way to educate our young people over there? Or should we consider to look at other practices like we have had for thousands of years, more like the master apprentice model? And in a way, some hidden way, we do that in certain parts of education, but in general, we put children in a classroom and expect them to teach the same stuff all together at the same rate and the same pace. There have been exceptions to those ideas, people like Maria Montessori and Rudolf Steiner. So we have the experience from the past, but we do not seem to get past that point. And you really can ask yourself if the paradigm of education has really changed a lot in those last 200 years. Then this is an interesting one. I will not run the video connected to this, but Peter Thiel is one of the two founders of PayPal, and the other one was Elon Musk. And while Elon used his money to go one way, Peter Thiel is a venture capitalist, and he was speaking, he's writing a book about it as well. Competition is for losers. And if you think about it, why would you even have competition on Mars? What is the benefit of that? Why do we have to have the best or the cheapest or whatever? Isn't it better to come to a far more cooperative model, and also to create niches as well? So this is part of the story that we tell anyway when we work with incubators and others. And then the one that I think is quite important, do we need to hang on to money? Is the oil in the machine that we're using nowadays the right one, or is there anything else that we can do? Can we use a different machine? Can we step away from the internal combustion engine and move on to EV? Can we perhaps consider not to have money on Mars, but do something with the time that I spent with you, for you, on you? Money is a funny construction. It's an invention, and it's only a few hundred years that we have been making it so important. So a lot of the modern day stress is coming out of the financial aspects of your life. So if you take all of that together, and I'm well within my 10 minutes then, if I summarize this, I'm looking at a situation where on modern day Earth, we have entrepreneurs and business people. We have people that go into competitive mode versus people that go into the niche mode. We're looking for financial profits more with business people and more holistic and creative approach for the entrepreneurs. And this is a spectrum, of course. This is not just black and white. There is, as you can see, a dividing line in here as well. But mass education versus master apprentice, risk avoider versus risk taker, all these things are listed here. Not in saying anything is bad or worse, but we should look at our talentpreneur ideas, at developing our talents from a more back to the future perspective. What do we really need? Is it more replaceable puppet, or is it more strong personalities? So that's it. That's it for me right now, and I hope there are some questions coming from the audience.
Mr. Praveen, I guess you are muted.
So can you unmute Praveen?
Mine sound okay. So, Mr. Abraham, so one question is that you've been contemplating on the replaceable and irreplaceable manpower or workforce, and then you're talking about mass education, wherein you are talking about master and apprenticeship. Do you think that they are all conflicting, or they're kind of talking differently? Replaceable, because apprenticeship can still be replaceable, master apprentice can still be replaceable.
Mr. Erno, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, the connection dropped, but I'm back again.
Yeah, so let me repeat my question here. So the question was about your contemplating on the replaceable and irreplaceable workforce, and then you were also talking about master and apprenticeship. But do you think so? The people really want to know that, like, are they not conflicting together? Because when you talk about
no, this is exactly the discussion that we should have. This is the right question, indeed. This is not a statement one is better than the other, but we need to look at the spectrum, and we need to look ahead as well. And we have a tendency to sometimes ignore the lessons from the past, like what I said, Maria Montessori, Rudolf Steiner. I've been an educator myself for like 10 years. But as an entrepreneur, I have been successful because I started to develop my own talents more, and I became a strong person and not a replaceable puppet. You are also not a replaceable puppet in yourself. But if you look around in society, what we are in general doing too much is we are leading people to a position where they can easily be replaced by somebody else. And it's even a hindrance sometimes if a strong person like yourself or me are part of the organization, because we become irreplaceable. And that is for some organizations quite scary. They don't want that.
So what could be that one skill or quality you would let us know that we could be not represented?
I think creativity, creative thinking, critical thinking is the most important angle that we need to look at. So, and I've seen it in many of the previous presentations as well. So I think that if we can come to a situation where we go for the individual, you, me, others, not everybody will have that desire to be so strong and to be so leading, of course. I've heard others talk about percentages. It might only be a few percent of us, but let's give these people with those ambitions and dreams, let's give them the room to develop themselves to become strong. And that is something I'm missing in South Asia quite often, unfortunately. I often go to Indonesia, and it's more about teamwork and not enough about individual skills.
So true, Mr. Aaron. So I think we understand your empathy and sympathy, and we will try to be in touch with you. As it's been a great, listening to you, and will allow us to come back to you through your emails and phones, so that you can enroll us with your knowledge and experiences. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you
Bye
very
bye.
much. Thank you.